Ladies and gentlemen, let me now introduce our chief guest, the Honorable Minister for State, Mr. Jayant Sinha. He's one of the most dynamic and well-qualified ministers in our government. I wish we had more such ministers. As most of you would be aware, Mr. Sinha sailed through IIT Delhi and Harvard Business School, two of the toughest institutes in the world, before joining McKinsey as a consultant. Post-McKinsey, he went to handle the Omidyar Networks, India's focused investments. After 25 years in the US, Mr. Sinha came back to join public life in India, and he helped shape Prime Minister Narendra Modi's national economic policy just before the elections. Now Mr. Sinha, along with Mr. Jaitley, has the great responsibility of helping the Modi government balance its books. Possibly there's no better qualified person for the task than Mr. Sinha, who has not only managed finances and investment at an international stage, but also seen his father, Shri Yashwant Sinha, frame some of India's most high-impact budgets during the first NDA government led by Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee. Mr. Sinha, it's an honor for us to have you here with us. Let me not stand between you and the minister any longer. So have a good MindRush at BT MindRush. Enjoy the evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction, Arun. To all my friends from the India Today group, CEOs, ladies and gentlemen, members of the media. Arun threw down the gauntlet because he said that he would have liked us to have moved even faster as far as economic reforms and progress on the ground is concerned. So I'll take on that challenge. And what I will try to do in my 15 or 20 minutes is to actually sketch out for you, first, what is the economic philosophy and the vision of this government? What are we really trying to accomplish? Second, what I will do is I will talk about 5 or 6 very major reforms that are already underway, that are already making a difference on the ground and impacting the lives of ordinary Indians on a day-to-day basis. And then finally, I'll talk about 3 or 4 other major things that we are working on. And none of this is going to be about GST. I'm sure you know all about GST, so I'm not going to bore you about GST anymore. I will just say one thing before I get started on my speech this evening about GST, which is through the masterful efforts, through the extraordinary consensus building, and the deft handling of a very complicated series of negotiations by the Honorable Finance Minister, we were able to build a consensus across all the states and the vast majority of opposition parties to put in place a revolutionary reform as far as our indirect taxes are concerned. We would have made India into one market, reduced prices and inflation for consumers, brought down costs for businesses, increased tax compliance and tax revenues. And if we just had the cooperation of the principal opposition party to do what is manifestly in the best interest of India, to create jobs for our young people, to make it possible for us to flourish, if we just had their cooperation and their collaboration, and I'm hoping, I'm an eternal optimist, we still have a few days to go for the winter session, if they can just allow the Rajya Sabha to debate this and discuss this, I'm sure all of my colleagues in the Rajya Sabha, in the opposition, will pass this bill and India will have the GST that we so urgently need. So that's all we need at this point as far as GST is concerned, but you've seen all of the articles in the newspapers, you've seen all the debates, so I won't say any more than this, but just to say it is an idea whose time has come. These are the words that Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, at that time Finance Minister, had used. As far as GST is concerned, no truer words have been spoken. The time has come to pass GST. Again, I will implore my colleagues in opposition to cooperate with us to do what is so manifestly in India's best interest. But let me turn now to the first theme that I said I would touch on, which is what is our economic philosophy? What is our economic vision? What are we trying to do? And GST, ladies and gentlemen, GST, as you know, is clearly an important element of that. But as the Honorable Prime Minister has said over and over again, our goal is to make India a Vishwaguru. We want India to be, and it is already becoming so, a shining star in the world, not just in terms of our economic power and what we can accomplish for the people of India, but to be a peaceful, prosperous democracy that can be a beacon of hope for the rest of the developing world. And the way we can do that, ladies and gentlemen, is by building India's productive capacity, to focus on the supply side, to pursue investment-driven growth. And that in fact has been the ideology, the philosophy of the BJP from the outset. That is precisely what Atal Bihari Vajpayee's government followed in NDA-1, and we saw the benefits of that. So we pursue a supply-side oriented approach, an investment-driven approach to build India's productive capacity, the hard assets, the factories, the roads, the bridges, the power plants, as well as the soft assets, the skills and employability of our people, the functioning of our economic institutions, our regulators, our judicial system, and very importantly, our innovation ecosystem. These are our soft assets. If we build the hard assets and the soft assets, we create the productive capacity in India to be able to sustain high growth over a long period of time. And it is that sustained high growth over a long period of time that has been the miracle that we have seen in China, where they've grown over 9% for 30 years and transformed that country. And so it is in this fashion, and this is why the Honorable Prime Minister says, we want to reform to transform. Reform to transform. And that's effectively what we are trying to do as far as our economic philosophy is concerned. Now, as part of our economic philosophy, there are 3 or 4 very important principles that we seek to follow. And the foremost principle that we seek to follow is to serve the poor of this country. We are a pro-poor government. और जैसे माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने 20 मई को कहा था, जब उन्होंने बहुत एक ऐतिहासिक भाषण दिया था सेंट्रल हॉल पार्लियामेंट में, उन्होंने कहा था कि हमारी सरकार जो है वो गरीबों की सरकार है और गरीबों को समर्पित सरकार है. We are a government that is dedicated to the poor, and it is not because that is a political necessity, ladies and gentlemen. If we are a government for the poor, it's not because we are looking for votes. It's not because it's a political necessity. ये हमारा राज धर्म है, ये हमारा राष्ट्र धर्म है. It is all of our moral responsibility as Indian citizens, as Indians, to make sure that we eliminate poverty from our beloved country, and we can do it. We can do it. So we are a pro-poor government. But because we are a pro-poor government, ladies and gentlemen, we are also a pro-market government. A pro-market, pro-competition government, because if our businesses don't flourish, if our entrepreneurs don't create companies and create jobs, we will not be able to provide the tax revenues, the economic surpluses to really uplift the poor. So the two are just 2 sides of the same coin. Pro-poor means you have to be pro-market. There is no other way. Along with being pro-poor and pro-market, we of course believe in the empowerment of the poor, not the entitlement of the poor. We have to give the poor the resources, the tools, the opportunities, which we're doing with things like Jan Dhan and so on, to really enable them to improve their own lives. And so along with the empowerment of the poor, we are also focused on minimum government, maximum governance. So we want a rules-based, policy-driven government with as little discretion as possible. And finally, the other important principle we follow is cooperative federalism. And we've shown that in all of the things we've done. So that's our economic philosophy. Build India's productive capacity, follow pro-poor, pro-market policies, ensure that government is there to facilitate and to support, and to make sure that our businesses thrive. That, in a nutshell, is our economic philosophy. That is the framework that we are following. Now, while following that philosophy, we have already, as I said, and now I'm coming to the second part of my talk, we have already unleashed, I would say, 5 or 6 very major initiatives, very major reforms. Now, very often what happens is, when you talk to the media or you talk to the press or even talk to business people, they say, where's the Big Bang reform? Where's the Big Bang reform? Why haven't you all done Big Bang reforms yet? But I must say that Big Bang, like beauty, lies in the eye of the beholder. So as far as I'm concerned, what I'm going to talk about, I think, is pretty Big Bang, but I'll leave you to decide whether it is, and Arun will of course have his own views on this, whether it is sufficiently Big Bang or not. But let me start with the first. And this is, I think, genuinely, I feel, personally, of historic importance. And it is because we are a pro-poor government. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to have universal social security in India. When Bismarck introduced old age pensions in Prussia, it was a revolution in its time. When Franklin Delano Roosevelt introduced Social Security in America as part of the New Deal during the Great Depression, it brought such popularity to him that they had to pass a constitutional amendment to say that you couldn't win term after term as president, and they passed the constitutional amendment. Now you can only have 8 years as US president. We think what we are doing in universal social security is as important. And we have achieved that. Done. Arun, it's done, it's happened. In 100 days, we made sure that 100% of Indian families had a bank account. Now, this is not a small thing, ladies and gentlemen. When 100% of Indian families have a bank account, we can get to them with a variety of social security programs. And guess what? We are. Do you know the world's largest direct benefit cash transfer program is already underway in India? It's called PEHL. How many of you are receiving your gas cylinder subsidy in your bank account? I hope no one, because none of you should be getting that subsidy. So it was a trick question. None of you fell for that though. But the fact is that today we have 12 crore people, 120 million people now receiving their gas cylinder subsidy directly in their bank account. 90% of people who are getting Narega payments are getting them either through their post office savings accounts or through direct transfer into their bank accounts. So as far as social security is concerned, we have solved the inclusion problem by bank accounts. We are solving the liquidity problem by putting in all these government benefits through the JAM Trinity, as my colleague Dr. Subramaniam has mentioned in his reports. And now we are trying to solve the access problem through the payment banks. So the payment banks, which includes the post office, it includes 10 other institutions, many of which are related to the telecom operators, as Mr. Himanshu was mentioning earlier, will enable access to happen as well. And so whether it is central government programs like Narega, like old age pensions, like widow pensions and so on, or whether it is state government programs, through this platform that we are creating, this social security platform, we can get it directly into the bank accounts of people. ना कोई दलाली होगी, ना कोई बिचौली होगी, जो आपको मिलना है वो आपको सीधे आपके बैंक के खाते में मिलेगा. Now for the poor lady in the village, you cannot imagine how liberating it is to know that she can go to her post office and get her money. This is, I think, truly of historic significance. And the beauty of this platform is that we can add other benefits and other programs on top of it with the confidence that there will not be any leakage, that these benefits, this safety net that we are creating is going directly to the beneficiary. I'm sure you'll agree with me that this is truly of historic importance. Truly of historic importance. And I'll distinguish between a safety net, which is what we are creating, through a right to work, through some of these pensions, old age, widow, disability pension, and health cover, social insurance, all of those things that are going to be on this platform, and an entitlement mindset. because this is establishing a safety net. It's saying that, you will have this much for sure so that you can feel secure in your life. But beyond that, you have to work, you have to really make yourself a better person so that you can do beyond this more in terms of improving the quality of your life. So we are establishing that social security platform. That's the first very important thing we're doing. The second very important thing we're doing is driving public investment in very important sectors of infrastructure. Now today, the mid-year economic survey has come in. And it's very gratifying to see in the numbers through our fiscal management that we are changing government expenditure. This is a very big thing, folks. We are cutting back on subsidies. We are cutting back on non-plan expenditure or expenditure that is just going into establishment costs. And instead, that money is being put into public investment. Now look at the Indian Railways. In the last decade, the Indian Railways got something like $35 billion of capex. Under the Honorable Railway Minister's very, very able guidance, we are going to be putting $135 billion, 8.5 lakh crores into the railways in the next 5 years. And a wonderful example of that is the bullet train that's going to be built between Mumbai and Ahmedabad. And for those who are saying, well, why are we putting money there and not somewhere else? They clearly haven't run the numbers. Because the loan that we are getting from JICA, from the Japanese government for building the bullet train, is a loan at a 0.1% interest rate, which has to be paid starting 15 years from now. So the concessional terms under which we've got that are extraordinary. And it will enable us to build a high-speed rail network in this country over time, which is sorely, sorely needed. We'll go from 5 to 6 hours of travel time between Mumbai to Ahmedabad to 2 to 2.5 hours. This is what we need to build a world-class, globally competitive economy, to have these kinds of public investments. If you see what the Honorable Transport Minister is doing right now with roads, it's extraordinary. We've gone from 3 kilometers a day of road construction to 18 kilometers a day. The Honorable Transport Minister said we are going to build the Eastern Expressway to decongest Delhi in 400 days. This is what is happening in public investment, the way in which we are pushing public investment, the money that's gone into it, the speed of delivery on that, extraordinary. 3 to 18 kilometers, Arun, it's happening right now on the ground, literally on the ground. Number 2. Number 3. We are transforming the power sector in this country. You already have seen what is happening with coal. Coal production is up. We have surplus power right now. With Uday, we are dealing with the problems that we have in the discoms. We have launched a real massive and rapid build out of the renewable energy sector, and we've been able to sign a historic accord in Paris right now. So our energy security, what we are trying to do as far as power and electricity is concerned, the speed at which this transformation is happening is also quite dramatic. Big bang, you decide. But it is certainly moving very quickly, and we are going to be in a situation where, and you can see this in a mobile app that the Honorable Energy Minister has done, you can see village after village is being electrified. Right in front of your eyes, on the ground, right now. Number 4, let's see what we're doing in the financial sector. Arundhati is sitting right here from State Bank of India. She doesn't like this very much, but in the last decade, not a single deposit-taking institution was licensed. Not a single deposit-taking institution. The last banks that were, a bank of deposit-taking banks. We've had some deposit-taking NBFCs. But the last 2 banks that were licensed were Kotak Bank and I guess, was it Yes Bank? Was that the other one? Kotak and Yes Bank about 10, 12 years ago. But since we have come to power, in the last 18 months, 23 new banks have been licensed. 23 new banks. 2 new commercial banks, Bandhan and IDFC Bank, 10 small banks, and 11 payment banks. That's created tremendous competition for deposits, But what it really means is for consumers, extraordinary convenience and the access that I was speaking about earlier. And that's just one example of what we're doing in financial services. If you see what we've done as far as venture capital is concerned, alternative investment funds are concerned, how we have streamlined regulations in capital markets, the whole MAT issue for FPIs, all of those, if you look at it, you'll see that the financial sector has been transformed. And I haven't even told you what has happened in insurance. You all know, and as a columnist wrote, from next generation reforms to Gen Next, it was my father who in 1998 had proposed that we go to 49% FDI. It was only in 2015, 17 years later, where I had the great privilege of piloting the legislation that eventually resulted in 49% FDI in insurance. Took us 17 years to get there. But you'll be very pleased to know that since that legislation was passed less than a year ago, 10,000 crores of FDI, 10,000 crores of FDI has been announced in the insurance sector. Arun, it's happening right now. Achhe din aa rahe hain. So the financial sector is being transformed. And now I'll come to my final point, the fifth one, as far as big bang reforms are concerned. And this has also happened. I'm not just making this up or making announcements. We have changed the fiscal architecture of the Indian state. Now, I know you don't like to spend too much time thinking about taxes. Now, in my role, I do get to spend a lot of time thinking about taxes. And it's astonishing for me. It's astonishing for me as to how fast the entire fiscal architecture of the Indian states, the manner in which we collect taxes and the manner in which taxes are shared between the center and the states have been transformed. The first exhibit in this argument is the devolution to the states, which has gone up from 32% of the divisible pool to 42%. 10% change. Now, this was the 14th Finance Commission, ladies and gentlemen. There have been 13 Finance Commissions before this that have opined on devolution. And do you know what the largest change before this has been? Does anyone know? We did 10%. The largest change prior to this was 2.5%. 2.5%. So generally, finance commissions have come and said, okay, give 2.5% more money to the states. They came and said to us, give them 10% more. And ladies and gentlemen, we did that. We did 10% more to the states and have completely, along with that, changed the manner in which central revenues are shared with the states and the whole operation of central schemes, the idea of plan expenditure, the idea of a planning commission, it's gone. I don't know if you were checking. The planning commission doesn't exist anymore. Big bang, I'll let you decide. I'll let you decide. But that whole, if you ask bureaucrats, if you ask ministers, if you have friends who've been as part of the system, they'll tell you about traipsing into the planning commission and having all these long debates about, getting money from central schemes and all of that. It's all gone. How soon we forget. So that part has completely changed. 32 to 42%, it's a group of chief ministers that's deciding how some of these centrally sponsored schemes are going to work. Number two, look at what we're doing for direct taxes as far as corporate tax code is concerned. You are CEOs, you understand. We are saying 30 to 25% reduction in corporate taxes, but we're going to change all the exemptions. The exemptions are going to go away. So much of the litigation, so much of the discretion, so much of the dispute that you have with the tax authorities today, ladies and gentlemen, is because of these exemptions, right or wrong? Right? Okay, all right. Well, we'll just get rid of that legislation. Whether it's drafted badly or worse, doesn't matter. That is quite a major thing to do. So we are streamlining and clearing out these exemptions and all of the language around these exemptions. Corporate tax code is being improved. Obviously, it's going through a series of public consultations. Please give us your views on all of that. That's happening as far as the direct taxes are concerned, corporate taxes. And then finally we come to indirect taxes. And I'm not going to say anything more about GST. I've already said my piece on that. But that, when you add these three up, the devolution to the states, corporate taxes going from 30 to 25%, and then of course GST, I'm sure you'll agree with me that this is a very far-reaching set of changes. A very far-reaching set of changes. And these are 5 examples I've given you that are hitting the ground now, that are live, that are real, that are showing you what we have been able to accomplish in 18 months. Now, as I said, Big Bang is in the eye of the beholder. And you do 5, somebody will say, well, why haven't you privatized this or done that yet? Of course, we are working on it. Give us a little bit of time. We've already said that as far as one of the public sector banks is concerned, we are going to transform that just like we've transformed Axis Bank. So the government is at work. The government is following a very coherent, clear, crisp set of policies, a framework that I think coheres, makes a lot of sense. Determined to keep pushing forward, even if we are blocked. We're determined to keep moving forward, even if we are blocked in Parliament, which is truly tragic for us as Indian citizens. For me, as a first-term member of Parliament, to come in and see what is happening, I can't even tell you how distressing it is. Because you sit there in those hallowed halls. You sit there in those hallowed halls. And if you all haven't visited Parliament, I would implore you to do so. Because there are all these portraits of all these people who have built India, the founders of India, the great figures of our Indian history. And when they see what is happening in the House, the Lok Sabha, the Rajya Sabha, friends, there must be tears coming down their cheeks to see the behavior of the parliamentarians today. That is not doing justice to our people, and it is deeply tragic for our country and what we need to do. It is truly, truly devastatingly sad what we're doing to our parliamentary democracy, and certainly for somebody like me who views it as a great honor and a great responsibility, and I'm here only because of a spirit of service, to see this, where the country, our economic progress, our parliamentary democracy is hijacked for these kinds of ends. I think it's a sad day for Indian democracy, and for all of us as citizens, we have to speak up against this outrage. We have to act against it. Now, I'll conclude quickly. I know I've taken some time, but I'll conclude quickly by telling you the 4 or 5 major areas that we're working on. As I've said, these are already 5 areas where we've made major changes. There are 4 or 5 other major areas that we're working on, and you'll soon see some of those actions coming through. The one very major area that we're working on is agriculture. Agriculture is a very difficult area. 68% of our arable land is not irrigated. We've got the Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana that we are working on right now, that is already being rolled out. We have the soil health card. We're doing more as far as agricultural credit is concerned, both in terms of crop loans, short-term loans, as well as agricultural investment. There's a lot of work happening there. We are working, and this is under advanced consideration now, on national crop insurance. Very important, because climate change and the erratic patterns of rainfall are really, really hurting our age-old agricultural practices. So agriculture is a very major area. Stay tuned, a lot of things are happening there. Number 2, startups. Now, we want to make India the best country in the world for starting up a company, going after new innovative business models, new innovative technologies. And so, as you know, there are some major initiatives underway here as well, which we will be announcing in mid-January. So stay tuned. As far as startups are concerned, as far as the entrepreneurial economy is concerned, we have some major work underway there. The third major area we are working on, obviously, is bankruptcy. The part about bankruptcy that people don't fully, I think, appreciate is while we'll have a rock-solid and a very high-quality bankruptcy code, and that work is well underway. The bankruptcy code has been put up for public consultation. Again, please give us your views. I don't think what people fully appreciate about the bankruptcy process is that the flip side of it is the corporate debt market. And I hope you understand the connection, which is that if you're a creditor and you're appropriately protected in bankruptcy and secured in bankruptcy, debt side, and that your interests are going to be protected. And so the balance of power is shifting between the promoter and the creditor. And by making the creditor's position much stronger than it is right now, we will in fact be able to create a broader, deeper, more liquid corporate bond market. And that is vitally important for infrastructure. Because right now our infrastructure is being financed largely by bank financing, which are reliant on short-term deposits. So we have a huge asset liability mismatch when we talk about financing infrastructure. By creating a much more robust bankruptcy process, we create a much deeper, more liquid corporate debt market, which means we can do infrastructure financing much better. This is very important for our continued growth. And then finally, the other area that we're doing a lot of work on right now continues to be further streamlining and working with the states on the ease of doing business. And ease of doing business, of course, we've moved up from 142nd to 130th. All the work that we're doing with the states gives us a sense that we should be in the top 100 in the next year and hopefully in the top 50 thereafter. But if we can get India to being in the top 50 as far as ease of doing business is concerned, and it is, of course, ongoing work, we have to keep hacking away at it, I think you will all agree that we will have made India truly a great place to do business. So those are some of the major initiatives that are still underway. I'll conclude with the following thought. What is India's economic destiny? Where are we headed? How do we see India 20 or 25 years from now? What do we do now to position India for that future? And the way that we see it, what we see as we look forward into the future, is that just like the United States is the entrepreneurial engine, the innovation hub, the motor that drives the economy for the top 1 billion people on the planet, the affluent top 1 billion people on the planet. India has the potential, the opportunity, and of course, the ability to be the entrepreneurial engine for the next 6 billion people on the planet. And so the products and services that, ladies and gentlemen, you are developing right now in India, the motorcycles, the ice creams, the telecom services, the financial services, all of these products and services that you're developing in India right now are the products and services that will do well in Indonesia, in Nigeria, in Kenya, in Vietnam, in Bolivia, in South Africa, in Morocco, in Egypt, in the developing world. And that, I think, is our manifest destiny, is to be the entrepreneurial engine, because we have the ability to do that. And we can do that. So let's work together. And again, I'm pleading to my friends in the opposition, let's work together. Let's pass GST. Let's make India the India of our dreams, the entrepreneurial engine for the next 6 billion people. Thank you very, very much.